So patron Lawrence Polinsky wanted to know about clinching nails. So what do we mean by clinching nails? Well, essentially, if we were to nail a board, we would then go ahead and take the nails that come through that board and bend them back over onto themselves like a staple. And it creates a really, really strong mechanical connection between two pieces of wood, yet still allows these pieces to move seasonally. Okay, so here we've got three clenched nails in this particular board. We've got a cross-grain situation here, but because there's no glue, there's only three clenched nails, the connection's very strong and very tight, but the boards can still move seasonally. So where would we use this? Well, this is, for example, going to be a small cabinet, a small door for a small cabinet. And since it's just a single panel door, you could also do this if you had multiple boards and battens across those multiple boards to hold them together. But since this is a single wide piece of wood, what I want to do with this is to put some battens across here that are going to help to hold this flat with seasonal changes. So it's going to allow it to move, but it's going to hold that board flat. So that's one of the situations you might clench nails. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to drill 3 holes. I'm going to put the nails in and then I'll clench them, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing I want to do is set my batten where I want it to be. And let me grab a couple of spring clamps here. We're just going to use them to hold the batten in place. Now what I want to do, I'm setting this up from the bottom edge. I'm just going to use my combination square to kind of set it evenly and get it kind of about where I want it on this board. Once I do that, I'll use these spring clamps to temporarily hold the batten in place. So we'll put the clamps on. Now I'm going to drill pilot holes for the nails. So what I'm using are clinch nails. So these are similar to other cut nails. These are made by the Tremont Nail Company. And they're similar to other cut nails, except they have a decorative head and they're malleable, which means they're quite easy to bend. And that's exactly what we want here with this type of mechanical joint, because we want to be able to bend those nails over. But we still need to drill a pilot hole. So what I'm going to do is use a drill bit that is just a hair bigger than the thickness of that nail. And that's what I'm going to use to drill. And I'm going to mark that with a awl. I'm going to come in about 1 inch from this end, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball center. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm using a birdcage awl to just kind of start a hole for my my drill bit. We'll come in about 1 inch on this side. Again, eyeball the center. Use that birdcage awl, and then my center is roughly 4 inches. Alright, so I've got a spot for 3 nails. Now I can go ahead and drill these holes. So before I do that, let's just grab a hold fast. We'll just use that to hold everything in place. And we'll drill 3 pilot holes. Just make sure you're far enough away from the edge of your bench that you don't drill into your bench. And I'm drilling completely through both pieces. So unlike a regular nail joint where you would be nailing into the bottom piece, so you're only going to drill a pilot hole part of the way down. In this case, I'm drilling completely through because I want to be able to insert nails all the way through the board. So now I can flip this over, and I have my pilot holes, and I can go ahead and drive these through. So I'm going to align these with the grain of the top board. So cut nails have a wedge shape to them. So they're parallel in one dimension, and they are tapered in the other dimension. So you want to align that wedge shape, that taper shape, along the grain of your top board, because that's going to allow that wedge to push against the top grain. There's not much of a wedge down past the very top part of the nail, so there's much less chance of splitting if you align that wedge shape with the top board. So I'll just nail these through, and I want to make sure that the boards don't separate as I'm doing this. So I'm going to kind of give the clamps a little help and squeeze the two of them together with my hand while I'm driving these nails through. And I'm not driving super hard. I'm kind of going easy and driving a little at a time. I'm not trying to drive these through in the least amount of hammer blows. I'm trying to just tap it through so that the boards don't come apart. Doesn't want to go. I'll drive that down flush and try to be careful not to hit the face of your top board. I'm going to put this second one in and do the same thing. Now you'll notice I've got some space here, okay? And I'm leaning this part of the batten on my workbench so that I can keep those two pieces together. So that's also helping to hold the boards together. One more to go. Again, aligning the wedge shape with the grain of the top board. Okay, now that I have both of those driven through, or all three of those driven through, you can see we've got quite a long nail sticking through, and you want that. You want a good amount of nail. You don't want to use nails that are too short. You won't be able to bend them back over and clench them. In order to clench them, you need a good amount of nail. So I'm going to go not quite halfway down the part of the nail that's sticking up, and I'm going to give it a little, start a little bend. You can do this just with your hammer, but I find it's a little bit easier if you actually start the bend with a pair of pliers or nippers of some sort, and then it just helps to follow the bend. So then I'm going to coax the bend over with my hammer. So I've got this sort of L shape now, and I want to go past horizontal. So that point is starting to turn back down, and now I'll hammer it over alternately until I get this started right where I want it to be. And then once it's started in the board, we're just going to hammer it back in just like a staple. Now, it's not really important which direction you clench in. I could have clenched this along this way as well, but since my batten is running this way, I like to clench in line with the batten. I just think it looks better when you open a door like this. So again, a little less than halfway, start the bend. Get that nail past L shape, right? So it's got a little hook on it. Turn it right back over. Now some people will put a metal block of some kind behind this surface. I haven't found it to be too necessary. I usually just put put it against my workbench, and it seems to work just fine. But if you're having problems with the nail popping back out, you can put a piece of metal back behind the nail head to hammer against. And that's it. So that is how we would go ahead and clench nails. And as you can see, this is never coming off. These battens are on there for good. You pretty much have to destroy this thing to get the battens off. And yes, the nails will show on the front side of the piece, but you know, for me, that's fine. That's part of the character of the piece. We see this in period pieces. You know, it's really not all that unusual. So as long as you don't mind that, it's something you know, I think gives the piece a little bit of character, and certainly is going to help to keep this door flat.